Hi, so I've had my little one. She's 5 days old as of today. I thought I would talk about my labour and delivery while it's still fresh in my mind. We didn't have the best experience. As I said, our baby girl is 5 days old as of today. We have named her Orla Rose Power. First name Orla, middle name Rose, last name Power. So she was born last week on Wednesday, March 1st at 10:30 p.m. So my labour started at about 6:30 in the morning. I woke up from this weird feeling. It was kind of like period cramps, but more than that, like I could tell it was more than that, and it had woken me up. That's kind of the first feeling that I got, and my son woke up shortly after and we got ready for him to go to nursery, and I just thought I'll go about the day as normal. And I'd had contractions leading up to leaving to take him to nursery. It takes about 10-15 minutes to get there. I didn't have any on the way there, so I was thinking, oh, maybe I've got this wrong. On the way back I had 3 to 4, and I always pick up a coffee on the way back from dropping him at nursery. Without any fail, I always pick up coffee, and I was in quite a bit of pain that I actually skipped that. And I got home and I just kept going about my day, kept doing things, keeping myself distracted, and the contractions just kept coming. They were about 10 minutes apart though, and they were really irregular. Like some only lasted about 10 seconds, some lasted up to 30 seconds. It was just kind of all over the place, so I wasn't sure. But we did decide to put my mother-in-law on alert because she was the one that was going to take Leo while I was in labour. But the contractions started getting closer together, about 5 minutes apart, but still quite irregular. So things were progressing slowly, and then my mother-in-law came and picked Leo up, and things had kind of stopped by the time she arrived, and I was thinking, oh gosh, I'm wrong, and I made her come all the way up here to get him. She took Leo, and I thought I'd take a bath and just see if that helped anything. And I did have contractions while I was taking a bath, but I started googling things and read that it can slow down labour. Not sure if that's true or not, but I got out of the bath straight away because I was just like, I don't want anything to slow this down. This has been going on since 6:30 this morning. At this point it was about 2:30, 3 o'clock. I got out of the bath and they started getting stronger. So I gave the hospital a call and just said, you know, they are quite irregular, just checking what I should do next. And the woman on the phone said, because it's your second baby and because things progress quite quickly in your labour with your son, you probably shouldn't be staying at home too long, but try to give it a couple of hours, and if anything changes then give us a call and you can come in. I just kept myself busy, checked on my hospital bags, got myself kind of sorted and ready. I was having some quite painful contractions, but again they were so irregular that I didn't want to go in too early, but I ended up having one around kind of 4, 5 o'clock or something. That was so painful that I just said, no, okay, let's give ourselves about 20 minutes and then call a taxi, because I just feel like that was way too strong to be at home. It kind of freaked me out a little bit because in my labour with Leo, my waters broke in the middle of the night, and then things slowly progressed from there, so I had like a lot of time to come to terms with the fact that I was in labour and just like I knew what was going to be coming next. Whereas when I had so many like kind of aches and pains and false labour signs this time round, I just wasn't sure if I was actually in labour or if this was going to go on for days or what I should do. But I freaked out a little bit, and we went in around 5:30 I think, and we got there around 6, and I'd only had 1 or 2 contractions in the taxi over there, which is quite different from my labour with Leo. We got into the hospital and we were told to go into the day assessment unit, which again is very different from when I went in with Leo. It was the middle of the night, so I guess it wasn't as busy, and we got taken into a delivery suite straight away. Whereas this time we went into a day assessment unit, and it was just very strange. We were waiting in a waiting room. There was women at all different stages of their pregnancies. There was definitely 3 or 4 other women that were in labour as well, because we were kind of like going off like domino effect. Every once in a while one of us would kind of like zone out and start breathing through a contraction. It was quite strange. Eventually I did have a checkup by a very lovely woman, and I was only 3 centimetres dilated, so she said, because it is your second baby, we don't want to send you home yet, but usually we don't let people into a delivery suite until they're 4 centimetres dilated, so I would suggest that you park your bags in here, go for a walk outside and see if it makes anything progress. Sorry, Orla just woke up and needed a little feed, but now she's back in her cot having a little snooze, as you do. I can't remember what the last thing I said was, but I think it was that the woman who checked me said to head out for a little walk. Unfortunately she was going off shift, so she passed us over to another lady who was not lovely. at all. And she said, no, go for 2 hours, leave your stuff here. If anything changes, then you can come back in and we'll talk about what to do next. So we went off for a walk, got some coffee, we got some food, and yeah, we went for a little walk, and I just kind of was walking around and breathing through the contractions. They were coming about every 3 to 4 minutes. They were quite painful at this point. And then about half an hour later, they changed out of nowhere to being about 2 minutes apart and really painful. I couldn't walk through them. I was having to bend over and breathe through them, and they were just really, really painful. So we tried to hold off for an hour. Sorry, she has woken up, so I'm just feeding her now. Excuse this kind of situation that's going on up here, but Leo's kicking off a bit as well, so I thought I'd just feed her while I'm doing this and just finish up. So I think I was saying that my contractions got quite strong, 2 minutes apart, and I was struggling to walk. So we started heading back into the hospital, and I barely made it upstairs. I was having to stop and like keel over, and the hospital was quite busy still because this was around 8 or 9 or something, and the like elevator was quite full still, so that was a little bit awkward, like keeling over in the corner. So we went upstairs and spoke to the same lady as before and tried to explain to her that I felt like she was going to come soon and that I was in a lot of pain, etc. And she just looked at me with no emotion and said, all I can do is offer you paracetamol. It's protocol to only be checked every 4 hours. But at that point I would have had to come back at about 11 o'clock or something like that, and I said to her, I really don't think that she's going to stay in that long. I'm going to have her before 11 o'clock. And she just looked at me and said, there's nothing I can do. Go for a walk. So Tom and I went around the corner in the hospital, found a reception area that was closed because it was now nighttime. I keeled over a chair in the corner of the hospital while Tom rubbed my back and went through the majority of my labour there. At some point, I can't even remember exactly what happened because I was like, you know, in the thick of it, but Tom went up and just said to her, okay, she'll take the paracetamol now. She's in loads of pain. We would like a delivery suite. And again, she said there's nothing that she could do, but she'd bring us the paracetamol. And it took her so long to bring it to us that someone else from the home from home section of the hospital had walked by me going through my contractions in the hallway and went and found a room for us, thank goodness. I had turned down the paracetamol because I was scared that it was going to slow down my labour. I don't know if that actually is what happens, but I was just terrified of slowing it down at all. So in hindsight, that would have been silly to turn it down because maybe she would have taken what I was saying seriously if I had taken paracetamol. I'm not sure. So we got in the hospital room at about 10 past 10. Tom helped me get my gown on, and I absolutely struggled to get it on because my contractions were coming so suddenly, like over and over again, you know, the ones leading up to being ready to push. I barely had a second to speak to my lovely midwife, and then it was time to push her out. She was born at 10:30, so I was in the room for all of 20 minutes. I had about 5 minutes where the midwife was checking me, and I was 8 centimeters dilated then, and literally it took a matter of minutes before I was 10 centimeters dilated and it was time to push her out. Fortunate that we had to deal with someone that was just absolutely refusing to help us out, and I feel like part of the reason why Orla was delivered so quickly, I'm not sure if this is the reason, she could have been delivered so quickly anyways, but I felt like I had worked myself up so much during my contractions in the hallway of the hospital. I felt uncomfortable and unsafe, if that makes sense, that I was in the corner of a hospital going through this, and I knew that it was wrong because with Leo I was put in a room straight away. That might have not happened if I had showed up during the day with my labour with him rather than the middle of the night, but I knew that this wasn't the way that I was meant to be treated. You know, they have all these posters up on the walls in the delivery suites that are showing all these different ways to cope with contractions, and all they're nice ways, like bounce on a ball, have a bath, all these things that I did while I was in my labour with Leo, and I just couldn't help but, not like there was very much time during the contractions to think about this, but I just felt really unsafe, and like no one besides Tom cared that I was in this much pain, and I had really worked myself up, so by the time I got in the hospital room I was kind of freaking out because I just felt like this is wrong, like I shouldn't be having the urge to push already. I've just gotten in the room. I was just freaking out, and luckily I had such a lovely midwife who kind of just said, you need to focus on having her now, calm down, etc. Sorry, she is hungry again. So she was born within 15 minutes and it was very, very quick and very, very painful. With Leo, of course it was very, very painful and it was all new and I didn't know what to expect, but I remember during the actual pushing point being like, yeah, I can do this, even though it was so incredibly painful and felt like something I had never felt before. It was kind of like empowering, and I remember just being like, you know, up for it, up for pushing him out. Oh, and also before I forget, I used gas and air, and straight away that really, really helped calm me down a little bit, was having the gas and air and having that to focus on. So unfortunately, right after she was delivered, I heard a little cry and then like a very quiet one, and then she was kind of like lifted up and I could tell that something was wrong. Her face was purple, her whole body was purple, and she was just really limp. I saw the midwife's face fall and she pressed a button and she said, okay, there's only about 6 or 7 people that are going to rush in now. The baby's just having a little bit of trouble breathing and she's a bit floppy, so just stay calm, there's going to be lots of people coming in now. And they took her straight away. Midwife cut the umbilical cord really quickly and they stuck her on a ventilation unit and had, you know, a mask over her face and all sorts of things, and it was just really, really awful. And she was on there for about an hour with just making the worst noise I've ever heard, trying to breathe. All the nurses were really lovely though. They kept reassuring us that this happens quite a bit and that they just need to just try to get her to breathe. They tried to put her on me for skin to skin. They said we'll give it about 10 minutes of her on you doing skin to skin just to see if that helps her breathe on her own. And after probably about 5 minutes they took her back straight away and said, I'm sorry, we're going to have to take her downstairs. When you're all done being checked up and stuff, if everything's okay with you, you can come downstairs and see her. And just when they were about to take her out, just kind of like setting everything up, she started breathing on her own, and they said, if you guys are comfortable with it, we'll leave this in here with you, we'll leave an emergency button and the midwife will stay in here with you. They came and checked on her about every hour and she was fine. The night was a little bit scary because she was, I believe, and I could be saying this wrong, as far as I understand, when babies are born they get rid of quite a bit of the fluid that's in their lungs. When they're delivered really, really quickly they don't get rid of that. So all night she was kind of like choking up, coughing up fluid and getting quite sick when she was feeding and things like that. Hello Leo. I didn't have any sleep and neither did Tom really. We were both kind of hovering over her. She seems to be all good. We haven't had any problems since she's been home. So anyways, that is my labour and delivery story. I hope it made sense, but as I said, it's been a bit scrambled. But yeah, she's here and we're all very happy. You're happy that you have a little sister? Yeah. I hope you enjoyed watching this. Thanks very much for watching. Bye! Bye.